Staff all ready? I think make sure this thing's working. Welcome to the December DRC meeting. The DRC is a subcommittee of the Historic Zoning Commission. The meeting is informal and designed to guide applicants through the process of obtaining a certificate of appropriateness or a COA for projects within the city's historic districts in light of the Historic District Design Guidelines. Applicant participation in DRC meetings is voluntary but highly recommended. Any changes made or suggestions taken by the applicants is based on the discussions with DRC are the applicant's choice, but the DRC makes no representation as to whether any changes or suggestions made during the meeting will be approved by the voting body, which is the Historic Zoning Commission. Tonight, we had 7 items. I believe we have 6 now. One was pulled. When the item is called, please, whoever's representing the project, come up, introduce yourself, describe your project in about 2 to 3 minutes. Let's get started. First up, discussion of rear alterations, rear ramp at 306 Public Square and Greg Gamble. And please remember to hit your button there. It should be green so that we can hear you and it streams correctly. Thank you.
Hi, I'm here with Greg Gamble, and I'm here with Brian Fox. Brian is going to walk us through the proposal.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Brian Fox with Interior Architects. I'm here representing Tecovas Boots. They're a company based out of Austin, Texas. We are preparing to, they'd like to open a retail store at 306 Public Square. As part of the renovation, we will have to do some exterior work due to the need to have an ADA ramp. There is no accessible entrance to the building today. And based off of code, and Tecovas' request, they'd like to have ADA accessibility into the building. So what that entails is we'll have to remove some existing steps into the building. There's 2 existing steps. We good? Okay. We'll remove the steps, and we need to remove the white door that's on the right-hand side. That will not be an entrance anymore. There'll be new restrooms and a fitting room to go into the space. And then the door in the middle will be the main door that will be accessible. We need to widen that door. It's currently not ADA accessible as it stands. So in order to do that, we have a proposal that we'd like to share with you. So we are proposing to infill the right-hand door. As you can see, we'll keep the window above, but infill that door. And then we will add a new hollow metal door where the accessible portion will be. We'll maintain the existing architecture, the brickwork, all of that. That'll just be rebuilt. And then we're planning to build a wood temporary stair, so it won't be connected to the building itself. Also, we intend to paint just the door and the window trim an urban bronze color to blend more in with the brickwork and the building itself.
Okay. Great.
Do you mind going back to the first slide for me? On the image on the left, do you mind pointing out where the hatch is that goes to the cellar below?
Would it be helpful? I only took this picture today.
Yeah.
That's perfect, yeah. So where the white door is, those 2 steps will be going away.
Yep.
And that cellar hatch is staying right where it is. The ramp will be on the parking lot side of the hatch, but the hatch is still accessible.
Yeah.
And then the 2 stairs going onto the darker door, those will also be going away.
Okay.
Those 2 steps to the darker door, that will be the access for the ramp.
Okay. Staff, did you have some comments for us?
Yes, I do. So, as the applicants have indicated, the proposal includes removing the existing door, storm door, concrete steps, removing this canopy, and the entrance will also need to be widened to be an ADA compliant door. Leading from the ADA compliant door will be a wooden ramp, and so within this rendering kind of shows where the ramp will be located. And so this is the wall of the adjacent building. And so there will be just a little bit of clearance from this existing wall from the ramp. And the non-historic door will be removed and infill brick will be placed where the door currently is, and the window above will remain. The guidelines recommend the following for ramps: that ramps should be constructed of concrete or wood. Paint ramps in colors compatible with the building. Use simple designs for ramps. And if possible, position ramps and lifts on the rear or side facades where not readily visible, so it is placed appropriately within the guidelines. The guidelines recommend the following for window and door alterations: that one should preserve and maintain historic windows and historic window openings. One should avoid enclosing, reducing, expanding, concealing, or otherwise obscuring historic windows and transoms. And if additional door opening is required, add it on the rear facade. And new entrances should have simple detailing that complements a historic entrance. And there were 2 comments addressed during the project review with Building and Neighborhood Services during their review of this project, is that the ramp construction is required to meet the requirements of the International Building Code, and the plans are required to be prepared by a licensed Tennessee design professional, and they are required to be stamped, signed, and dated. And then also a survey will be required of this, as that it appears that the ramp would encroach into the city right-of-way at the rear of the building.
Okay, thank you. All right, as this is a little less formal than our voting meetings, if anybody wants to start us off with comments, you want to start?
Yeah, I would
Brian?
just looking at the photograph, and thanks for taking that photograph today. I mean, you can tell that the door on the right, that's the infill door, that's a modified window. So that was not an original entrance into the building. But you said behind that's going to be a restroom.
Correct. So restroom and a fitting room behind that door.
And so you're proposing just to infill the brick.
We will infill the brick, and then I think we will propose to put film on the upper portion so that it's not, anybody can't see visibly into the space
For the window, where the top of the window.
where the windows are.
I'm just throwing this out just because it's just to throw it out. I mean, visually, those are great windows. It'd be great to see it restored, to have the window back, but then you're going to have to do something to cover it from the interior, so that, because you need that space for privacy. So I'm just throwing that out if there was any way to do that. It's going to be hard to match that brick.
Yes, I think it's kind of remodeled looking right now, and it's fairly remodeled looking right now, so it would just be an amazing gift to the town, since you're putting in all the ramp to kind of even out that distraction. If the bottom window were built back, and then just deal with on the inside what it would take to make it private, even if it were drywalling over the inside and, painting the backside black.
And it could be framed over
Or
on the interior.
Framed
with
over on
drywall.
the interior,
Okay.
right. So that would be what I'd like to see to protect the historic character of downtown. And I believe that the steps, at least from where the best I can see, and oh my gosh, the photograph is amazing, Emily, to have, but it looks like that's limestone to me. So,
So, sorry, can I clarify? So, whenever I was out, I took a couple more pictures on my phone, but I didn't have time to upload them all. It looks like it is asphalt, and then this is concrete poured on
Okay.
top of the asphalt. So,
Gotcha.
it doesn't look like it's limestone.
well, and I
right
may
here.
be seeing it wrong.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, those would be my comments.
Holly, any thoughts?
Sorry. You guys were suggesting taking out that door and making it look like the original windows. Am I right?
I think their
Is that-
proposal was that
Yeah.
it was brick, and the other commissioners said maybe restoring the window.
Yeah,
to
I
full
think it would look amazing if it's possible to recreate that, because some brick would have to be added anyway for below it, underneath the window. But I don't know, if that's very difficult to get a window like that looks like it matches. But I think that would be a great idea. It would look better than it does now,
Sure.
for sure.
Okay. Kathy, any comment?
I agree with y'all about doing the window. You'll have much more success retrofitting a window in there than retrofitting brick 100%. So that would be the easy route out, in my opinion. Are you actually demolishing the concrete steps to the door in the middle? Are you building the ramp over that?
In order for the ramp to be flush with the threshold of the door, at least that top part needs to
Okay.
come off.
I just was concerned about integrity of the foundation wall, so I would just be careful, because that is probably attached to the wall in some fashion, maybe. The
I'm
brick,
not sure, but I don't think it is, but
Okay.
maybe it is.
I can run by it.
just, yeah, as much a modification to the original brick is probably the goal for removal of that step. And Mary, it does look like limestone to me. I thought it would be. When I look
That-
at that image, it's
yeah.
kind of worn and weathered like almost. And then about the way the ramp is positioned on the site, I guess y'all need to make sure it's not in a setback, and that's mostly because of the hatch to the cellar or whatever it is down there. What is it? It's like a 7-foot cellar or something.
Yeah, there's head clearance for me, so it's at least 6 feet of clearance down there.
Thank you. Anything else, Kathy?
Nope.
Bob?
I agree with that window above the current white door. I think that being put back to its original size would be great. I was curious, the door with the awning above it, how wide is it currently?
The door is 31.25 inches, so it's not very far off, but it's far enough off that it doesn't meet the current. So we may not have to do a ton of remediation to the brick or remove any of the brick. We might be able to deal with it with just the framing.
Okay.
So the point of it, I know the front is handicapped accessible, but the reason you're seeking handicapped accessibility on the rear is so that people can get in either direction.
The front of the building only has steps into it.
It
There is
does?
no ADA ramp at the front.
Okay. Got it.
So in order to add the accessibility,
Yeah,
we
that's
prefer to put
better,
it on
yeah.
the backside.
I thought it did. I'm sorry.
And this is the old Franklin National Bank building.
Yeah, I remember. I gotcha. It does have steps.
Would the framing on the door I was talking about with the awning, is the framing wood, so it might make it easier to,
It is currently wood today.
Reconfigure
It's
it.
a wood door and wood frame, so It's about 2 inches, so I think that I might be able to get an 1.5 inch frame on both sides and still keep the door with the same dimension.
What width are you required to have?
88 is 32 from the face of the door in its open position to the frame, so I just have to make sure I have that.
And you're looking for a metal door, just a solid
A
metal
solid
door?
metal door, correct.
Is that okay with staff? Solid metal door? Does that meet?
Well, we also wanted to clarify on, a little bit more on the existing door. Do we know what the age of that door is? I know that there's a transom above the door. I wanted to open up the storm door whenever I was out today, but I would hate to have set off an alarm.
Yeah, I have one over there today. It's fairly old. I'm not sure if it's original to the building itself, but it's definitely worn and tattered. So, I mean, we could potentially put back a door that's in similar style, but we just want to make sure that from a security standpoint, that it has enough integrity to, withstand anybody breaking in.
If you could do a similar style, I think that would be a great service to the building.
Sure. Yeah.
And Emily, if you get a chance,
When you say style, are you talking about material as well?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean by?
And, I noticed that has
all
raised
metal?
panels. It's not a solid metal door.
We can do a solid core wood door.
Don't if I'm seeing the interior of that door in this photograph, it has raised panels.
Yep.
Can you bring up your photograph of the exterior again of that building? And can just kind of show it as it's in its all entirety? Just to point out, it's for the rear of the building to have these great windows in it is neat. But if you'll notice that the larger windows at the bottom have larger light panes than the one at the top. And that was a common. I just think it's good to see how it was kind of done historically.
Yeah.
Well, it's a handsome rear of the building.
We will also be removing the burglar bars off the window. Hopefully that is okay.
Well, you don't have to worry about your door security then. Yeah, I'll finish this one up with a couple comments. I was really indifferent to the white door area, one way or the other. I'd love to see the white door go away, and the reason for that is what I don't want to happen is for that upper sash, which is original, to just wholesale be thrown out and a new window put in that is just going to be different, period. So I have a little bit of trepidation there with just saying put another window that same size in. I think it goes
we're
with
saying that, Tyler.
I think everybody was saying put in the bottom sash that matches the top.
Rebuild it, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying is it has to.
Yes.
I think the assumption amongst us is if that window goes back to an original format,
Right.
that it would have to be custom made
You're right.
to go
Yes.
with what's above it,
Okay.
not order a
Yeah.
modern
yeah.
window. That's
Yeah,
And
you're
that
So-
was
right.
your understanding as well.
Yeah. So, love to see that go away. If for some reason a bottom sash and all that can't be put together correctly, then I'd rather see brick go in there than that white door that's sort of half in the wall, half in the jamb, and half out. Everything else, same comments that everyone else had. And the clearance thing with the alley is, get that really double checked, because if the cellar door has to be thought of differently, or the ramp configuration because of the right of way that the city owns back there, then we'll have to look at it again. So, and I see there's some other opening on the left side. Was that an old door or window, or nobody knows?
It would appear to be a door.
Yeah,
Or
but it's a little
door.
higher than the FFE.
Yeah.
So it's pretty curious.
It's a unusual creature.
Yeah.
Good. I did not notice that. Wow.
Anyways, painting the sash I don't have a problem with that. Downspouts, gutters, all that, if it gets painted a bronze color, that's, personally, I'd love to see that, and I don't think it meets ADA to have that storm door on there that comes off, right? Okay. Yeah. Any last little wrap up? We hit it good? You guys feel good?
Thank y'all very much.
Thank y'all
you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right, item number 2, window replacement at 218 Fifth Avenue South. I am not going to try and say your first name, but I will say Stover, Miley. Miss Miley Stover, if you'll come on up. If you want to give us just a quick 2-minute overview here of what you're trying to do, and then staff will give some comments, and then we'll give you some comments.
Yes, so we purchased that home 3 years ago, and the windows on, all the windows in the house in each room were not operable except the front of the house, which I think I gave a picture of that. So those windows there were replaced by the previous owner. They are operable. The windows on the driveway side and on the other side, in the 2 bedrooms on the left and the dining room on the right, both of those are inoperable. Those up there at the top, the previous owner replaced as well. So there are, for safety reasons, somebody can get out of that room. But those windows and the ones on the other side are inoperable and cannot be opened. I've had 3 window guys out. There's a crack in the windows at the top, which we don't have to replace now. And as a matter of fact, I'd probably like to hold off on those windows because they do face the front of the house and they are original. But the windows on the north side of the house where the bedrooms are, there is no exit out those windows and they cannot be opened. And one of them is cracked, which will shatter when we remove them anyway. So the window construction maker that is giving me a quote for the windows on the bedroom side need to be replaced, meaning fully removed and put in place a new window, which would match the ones that that face the front of the street. They're the same grids as what's in there now, but a different manufacturer, but look exactly the same.
Okay.
Just to make sure that there is an operable fire escape in each of those bedrooms.
Okay. Staff, you have some comments for us?
Yes, thank you. So to begin, this applicant is here to discuss the replacement of 13 windows on the home found at 218 Fifth Avenue North, and this is a circa 1930 1.5-story stone cottage with Tudor influence. The applicant noted that the windows do not open and would like to replace them to match the windows that have been already replaced on the home. Images of 2 6/1 light windows have been provided, and a number of images of 10 light casement windows have been provided as well. The National Register does note the 6/6 light windows with wood sashes in the listing for the property. And so the guidelines recommend the following: to preserve and maintain historic windows and historic window openings, to design new or replacement windows to have historic profiles and dimensions and be double hung in appearance, use true divided or simulated divided lights windows rather than snap and muttons or grid between the glass style windows, and to design new and replacement windows to match historic materials found on the building. And so from the images provided within the application, the level of deterioration shown on the windows does not seem sufficient to be able to recommend replacement instead of rehabilitation. Additional information would be needed to better understand the condition of the windows and why rehabbing the windows and their opening isn't possible.
The material of the existing windows that have already been replaced is unknown, but they do not appear to be wood windows. More information about that replacement window profile is needed to understand if they would meet the recommendation of the design guidelines today. As they appear right now, the front windows would not meet the recommendation of a replacement window. The muntin does appear to be either a snap-in or grid between the glass muntin, which is not a historic profile. However, always rehabilitation of the windows is the recommended treatment option based on the information provided. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone want to volunteer to start us off?
So
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am.
And then there was one project consideration from Building and Neighborhood Services that if any windows to be replaced serve as the required emergency escape and rescue opening for a sleeping room, the replacement window shall be the manufacturer's largest standard size window that will fit within the existing frame or existing rough opening, and the replacement window shall be of the same operating style as the existing window or style that provides for an equal or greater window opening area than that existing window.
And you said that it has to fit within the existing frame or rough opening? Or
It
either?
says frame or rough opening.
Okay, thank you. All right, would you like to go, Brian?
Yeah, so I have a question. This would be under the first photograph that I have here, which is under PDFDUK. Does that help? And I noticed those appear to be casement windows
Yes,
and not, double hung.
right.
And then when I look at, is it PFGG? On those, you do see double hung with the 6 at the top and the bottom. Now, I would say those are original windows. But the ones of the casement, I'm not sure that they're original. Even when I look at the photograph of how they connect to the bottom window ledge or seal, there's a gap in between there. Almost like those sashes don't quite meet, but they do appear to be old. I don't know when that would have been.
The previous owner had only told us that he replaced the front windows. That was the only thing that he was rating new because the house is 1931.
Well, given those, the way those casements look,
Yeah.
at least how they're constructed, they appear to predate
Okay.
the previous owner, I'm assuming, unless
Yeah,
they're there
he
all
was
their
only
life.
there from, at my assumption, I think it was 06 to 2020 or 2021.
And on the National Register, when it noted 6/6, what was that referring to?
I believe that would be the front windows. There are some 6/6 windows up at the top, and
Oh, and those have been replaced, haven't they?
The ones on the left of that, oh, you're talking about those. Yes, those have been replaced.
But the dormer not.
No, those are cracking and those are casement.
Yeah.
And they seem like they're original. But the north side window, he replaced with the same ones. So there is an escape out that bedroom.
But in the photograph I'm seeing that has, your dog looking out the window, you can't miss that.
Yes.
That one, that's not the dormer, that's on the first level.
That's first level facing the driveway. Yes,
So
so
the
if you're
right
standing in that living room looking out, just the neighbor can see that, but you can't see it from the street.
And as far as casement goes, those are just larger versions of what you have in your dormer. Is that correct?
Taller, skinnier.
Taller and skinnier, yeah, because those are quite small in the dormer.
Okay. Well, could be the original.
Yeah, my office building is of this vintage and style, and we have gobs of casements that look just like this, and they're all original, every one of them. So
Okay.
I don't think it's uncommon, and we see a good mixture. We have double hungs all over the building too that are all original. So I don't know that they're not original. Definitely the front. Are the front windows, are they vinyl?
I would have to ask my contractor.
Okay. In
I don't know, I didn't put them in, they were there when we bought the house.
The
My
other
guess
thing,
is maybe.
too- Yeah, I don't know what they are from the picture. I thought you maybe know, but I can tell that they're inserts because you can still see the old frame, and that's certainly not the way that the guidelines recommend even replacing windows or restoring them. They typically need to have a whole new frame, because you start to get those steps in, you lose glass area, and it does look very different.
When
But,
you say frame, just so I understand, do you mean removing that from the actual
so there's
stone house, like the actual casement?
Yeah, so you'll have the stone line there, and it turns to that brown trim.
Uh-huh.
That's brick mold, and then there's a frame inside of that that's also brown, and then it turns into another frame of the new window, where previously the old window probably was attached straight. The sashes were attached straight to the brown frame.
Gotcha.
So now you've got a whole second frame inside the old frame.
Okay.
And you can sort of see if you zoom in, you see the extra lines. I'm going to reserve some of my other comments till everybody else talks, but let's hear from other folks on replacing some of the other ones, what you all think.
Well, I think anything that's original, if you can find the right craftsperson, I think they can be repaired. And I think that keeps the integrity of this house, which has a lot of integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything, Holly?
Yeah, I think it looks like they're all original except those that look like vinyl to me that they probably just didn't get approved and just put in. And also about them being inoperable, they look like they're casement windows and that they all are operable, or is it that they're like painted shut, or what's the
The contractor said they're painted shut, but there's not species, but there's like dirt growing. Like it's, I think because of how old the stone is, I'm assuming it's original.
Yeah.
That it's like the dirt that's been inside is like, it's growing through the windows. It's not, and it's impossible to open them. That's why they cracked when that contractor first tried. And the biggest concern was the bedrooms on the north side, because you cannot get out of currently. And we didn't realize that, which is more of the safety concern that she had mentioned, is the windows. There needs to be a fire escape
yeah.
out both of those bedrooms. And he replaced them with the vinyl or whatever that window is on the north side of the bedroom, but he kept the casement at the front.
Yeah.
So I'm just concerned about safety, making sure that both of those, if we need to keep the casement windows as is, and I need to look in that a little bit deeper to see
Yeah.
if there is any way of restoration. There is an exit, because those rooms are not closed.
Yeah.
They are direct access to the front door.
Yeah, well, I'm with you on the safety for sure. I think you should definitely get them to open.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
but I think for how much it would cost to get new windows that actually were really nice, like with real wood, it seems like it would be less expensive to repair that, like to clean them and fix them up.
Well, that was my other issue, and that's just coming from a financial standpoint right now, because we don't live in the house. We are not in a financial position to spend what he was saying was between $800 and $1,200 a window for a regular, whether it's vinyl or wood. I think they actually are wood. I think they're painted wood, is what he said. He said it would probably be double or triple to get them restored because of the glass replacement, because of the cracks. And we can't do that at this particular moment. So I'm just looking for our goal, hopefully in 10 years, once my kids go to college, that would be great. My goal is to completely restore the house from scratch, every single window, every piece of stone, because we want to live back here in Franklin again. So, but for safety reasons, I do need a window to open on the north side of those two bedrooms, even if it's one. And that's not really the look I'm going for, but I was just trying to stay with what the previous owner did with the current windows that go up and down. Sorry, forgetting what you call them.
Double hung.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, Kathy, you have any thoughts? No, Bob?
I mean, even if you really want what on the opposite from the driveway, the north side, you
Yep.
want to, you might even just look at really doing the one that you want to open
One window.
first.
Yeah.
And do it right. And that way, you know, you don't destroy the integrity of the house.
Right. Well, I have no intention of, I mean, we love this house. This is why we purchased this house. We hope to grow old and in this house. So that is why I want to be able to do that. But doing that is this house is 100 years old almost. There is a lot to be done. But we've already spent as much as we could spend this year to get it to, you know, be where it is now. But that is an issue, just getting a window to open. And I've spoken to 2 different window guys, and that was their suggestion, which is, and I had no idea that we even had to come to a meet. So I'm learning a lot. So this is very helpful.
Sure. So I would ask you, what were they window replacement salespeople that you talked to, or?
Yes, sir. It was a window replacement company.
Okay.
Yeah. I
And-
talked to him, and he works all around Franklin and most of Williamson County. And he works with a few colleagues of mine.
And, you know, they kind of have motivation to sell you new windows.
Right.
I
Well,
would-
it's just because we already have the other windows there. You know, he was just saying I can try and match those so they look like the rest of what's already been put in. I didn't put that in, that was there when we purchased the home, and that's documented on RealTrax and Zillow. So,
I would recommend getting an estimate from someone who actually works with old windows.
okay.
And I've had some experience myself at my old house, and none of mine worked.
Okay.
And I was able, you know, to get them all working. So it is possible to get them even with their weights in them, where they counterbalance. You can raise them, close them, and I think a lot of them have just been painted shut over the years.
Okay. Do you guys have a list of recommendations for those people?
Unfortunately, we can't make recommendations.
Okay.
I don't know if you could probably maybe contact Emily or staff, and
Okay.
I think they can't make recommendations, but they might be able to point you in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah, just just to follow up with everybody's comments. I mean, I think what was done to the house previously wouldn't be something that we probably supported in that format with that insert. And the guidelines really recommend against replacing any historic windows. It always says rework the existing. I mean, it's just a hard and fast rule, and we try to stick to that unless you know, it's literally just like fell out of the wall and is gone. It's so rotten. A lot of these issues about being jammed up and having enough pressure that they won't open happens a lot with these old houses. They have to be shaved down, and also if the house, the exterior hasn't been maintained to a certain point where it's getting moisture in there and has swelled, it can do that. This is a great time of year when it's cold and things start to shrink a little to have your best shot at getting it apart. It's a little worse in the summer. So I'd encourage you to revisit some of those. We haven't had a really cold winter yet. I mean, it's starting to trend that way, but you know, into January, get a real window repair and restoration expert out there. They have the best shot at kind of getting it apart and giving you the best advice at that point. But I think personally, if this came to a vote at a voting meeting, I'd have to stick with what the guidelines say. So I think everybody sort of
I
felt
was
that
just
way.
going to see if I looked up repair historic windows Nashville, if something came
Yeah, a
up.
bunch of things will come up.
And as far as safety is concerned, could you repeat that, what you had written regarding the,
So this was a note from the residential plans reviewer that if any of the windows to be replaced, and I can send this comment to you in our recap too.
perfect.
Serve as the required emergency escape and rescue opening for a sleeping room, the replacement window shall be the manufacturer's largest standard size window that will fit within the existing frame or existing rough opening, and the replacement window shall be of the same operating style as the existing window, or a style that provides for an equal or greater window opening area than the existing window.
And that applies if we decided to vote against the staff recommendation and against the guidelines to allow you to do it, which is rare occasion.
So the next step would be, for safety purposes, what is recommended for safety purposes if somebody's living in the house?
Well, I mean, we don't really review safety issues, but if you need one for egress to be operable, then you would get that, at least that one repaired. That would be in keeping with what the guidelines say.
Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
In some of these living room, kitchen, dining room windows, those aren't required for egress. It's really sleeping rooms. I probably shouldn't even say that, but that's what the requirement is
Okay.
in code. So that's kind of the best advice we can give you for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one example, so on Fair Street, and it's recently been completely remodeled. It's a 2-story brick in the federal style. It's more towards, I think, towards Fifth Avenue. Actually, it's
Okay.
more towards Fifth Avenue. But in the little addition that sticks out from the brick, it's a wood addition. All those windows have been made operable and restored. And within the last year.
Okay.
And I think if you look at those, you'll get some idea of what can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you coming. All right, let's keep moving here. Discussion of recommendation request to the Board of Zoning Appeals as related to floodplain construction standards, building finished floor elevation at 106 Bridge Street. And again, this is not a voting thing, but we're discussing what would be at a voting meeting, just one of those recommendation requests, not a COA. Greg Gamble is our applicant.
Hi, my name is Greg Gamble, and I'm representing South Miller Street LLC, who recently purchased this property at 106 Bridge Street. They're unable to be here tonight, and I'm representing them on their behalf. We have a request that we'd like to propose to the City of Franklin to change the use of these buildings. The use identified in the zoning ordinance for these buildings today is vehicular service facility. That's not a permitted use if it were to be brand new in this First Avenue district. We would like to propose a change of use from the vehicular service facility to a restaurant, where this small 1,200 square foot building and the adjacent Kwanzaa hut could be used for dining, seating, more of a casual family style facility. When a change of use is proposed, if you'll go to the next slide for me. Just talk about the 3 buildings that are on the property right now. The first principal structure is a concrete block building built around the 1930s. The Kwanzaa hut was installed on the property around 1970, and there's a wooden shed in the back that is around mid-1800s. The Keolis would like to restore all of these structures that are there today. Then on the next slide. This property is completely encumbered by the floodway. It's very unique. It's the only property that we have found in the downtown area or in the historic district that has existing buildings on the property and is completely in the floodway of the Harpeth River. We can't find another one that has similar circumstances to this. If you'll go to the next slide for me, we are going to be requesting a variance to the Board of Zoning Appeals to waive the substantial improvement requirement to flood-proof or raise the first floor elevation of a historic structure above the base flood elevation for this property located at 106 Bridge Street. If you'll go to the next slide for me. This is the principal structure, CME block. It has a building elevation of 636 feet. The floodplain elevation here is 639 feet, but the required finished floor elevation would be at 640. So this building would have to be raised 4 feet to be in compliance with those flood standards. On the next slide then, this is the Kwanzaa hut. The Kwanzaa hut sits at a base elevation of 635. And again, it would have to be raised to the 640 contour elevation, which is a 5-foot difference. On the next slide, then, we have the structure from the mid-1800s. This shed sits at an elevation of 631, and would need to be raised to 640, which is a 9-foot difference. FEMA allows the preservation of historic structures within the floodplain floodway as long as a variance is granted by the local board. And we're asking for your endorsement to the Board of Zoning Appeals so that as we bring this forward, they will have your recommendation.
All right. Thank you. Emily, did you have some comments for us?
I sure did. So, as Greg mentioned, there are 3 structures on the property at 106 Bridge Street. There is a circa 1930 concrete block building, a circa 1970 Quonset hut with a brick facade, and an older wooden storage shed that the National Register did not list in determining its age, but within the packet it did say that it was around mid-1800s. So in order for the existing buildings to not be raised 4 feet, 5 feet, and 9 feet above the base flood elevations, the buildings will need a recommendation from the Historic Zoning Commission to the BZA to not elevate it, as raising the existing building would significantly alter the building's historic appearances. With the variance, it would allow the existing buildings to not be raised, but any additions that are proposed must meet the floodplain requirements. And there was only one comment from BNS, and that it's the applicant shall obtain a floodplain development permit prior to any disturbance of the FFO. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let's start on the other end with Bob. He loves going first.
Yeah. I think it'd be cost prohibitive and it would look silly if it was raised. So I wouldn't have an issue with
Okay.
approving a variance.
Perfect.
It would also lose its historic status, most likely.
Of course.
Kathy?
Well, if you turned it into a fishing camp restaurant style, you know, the stilts might work. But yeah, I'm happy to see something happen with this little corner. You've got a special site, one of a kind. What is the wooden storage shed? What's the proposal for reusing that?
Just to rehab it. I don't know that we have anything specific for it with an intended purpose. I've seen some places where they've used it as a cooler, refrigerator or something, but I don't know.
So
They
the
don't
other
really-
2 buildings would be the restaurant
They would.
building.
The Quonset hut would be kind of an outdoor seating area, probably with some ceiling fans. The block building would be the principal restaurant.
Okay.
Thanks.
Holly?
I think that would be fine. I was just wondering what, do they do different finishes in a building like that if it might flood? Or is like waterproof or something? Or what do you, like, not that that has to do with the variance. I think it's totally
Sure,
fine,
but
I was
all
just
of that
wondering.
needs to be looked at. The finishes need to be simple in the event that there is a flood event where it's not creating major damage.
Sure. Mary?
They made it through the flood of 2010. So I would feel very comfortable about not raising them for all those reasons and just for a common sense that they survived the flood of 2010.
Right.
Good. Brian?
I'm comfortable with it as well. I read in the review appeal, going through the old newspapers, I think about 1948, that the GI Bill was re-educating GIs from World War II, and it might have been that Quonset hut that was being used for that re-education. Could have been the other two. We know that other building was once owned by the city and used for sanitation, garage, this kind of thing.
Public
too.
Works Office.
And that shed, I don't know where the mid-1800s come from. I mean, you may know more, but its construction with those round poles reminds me more of a pole structure than a mid-1800s. But just to throw that out.
Okay.
And just to throw one other thing out, just because it's I think a neat little tidbit of history, that First Avenue used to run through here and run all the way back to North Margin. You know, now you have to turn on Bridge. And that's because the river washed it out. And it was never really connected, but it was a part of the original plan of Franklin.
Really?
I've been told, and I'm not exactly sure who from, but I've been told that that wooden shed may be one of the oldest structures in downtown Franklin.
Really?
So it'd be worth researching more and finding out more about the history on it. I've talked to a few historians here in town. They don't have a lot of information on it, so unfortunate.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else to add. Looks good to me.
Okay,
So, thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, Greg. Number 4, discussion of additions, principal and accessory at 720 West Main Street. Amanda McCreary.
Hello,
Hi there.
it's Amanda McCreary, Chisel Workshop. I was here last month. We were looking at this house on the corner at Main Street and 7th, I believe, which is the street that connects Main to Fair, but doesn't go any further than just Main Street and Fair Street. And we were talking about some additions and some fencing and stuff like that, so I'm back again. A couple of updates. We're not going to pursue any kind of fencing in the side yard after our discussions last time. I think there's too many challenges involved in that, so we are not going to do that. From the site plan perspective, last time we had discussed a couple of different options. Still looking to do the rear at what's currently the screen porch. With our clients and the need, I know last time we talked about a porte cochere, or even we had discussed a possibility of an addition to the existing garage. So the diagram that's on the left that we're calling option 1 is enclosure of the screen porch, a small addition off the rear, and the porte cochere or covered parking off the back. And if we do add to the garage, which we may not do, but if we do, it would be towards the rear. Then option 2 is an addition to the garage instead. We're showing on that diagram a covered walkway, covered connection between the garage and the house. I actually do not think that's feasible just because of the roof lines and being able to get a car or even say a U-Haul or something in the garage, into the drive. So I don't know if that's actually an option. But I know last time I was here too, to update you, we had talked about our clients are retired. This is their retirement home, their retirement plan for them, and they're of a retired age. And so for them, it is very important to have age in place and to be able to get from point A to point B carefully. So we definitely prefer, from a practical standpoint, option number 1, as it provides covered parking attached to the house without being a garage attached to the house. So that is definitely our preferred option. This particular site, we discussed it a little bit last time. I know, Ms. Kathy, you mentioned it as well, of doing a site visit. We have a tremendous, it's interesting, it's one of the few in Franklin. We've got a full basement, but we've got a tremendous grade change from the left to the right of the house. And just to talk a little bit more, and then I'll be quiet. The next page, you can skip the floor plan, but go to the elevation. This is the side that faces 7th, and with the addition off the back. And what we had talked last time, that small window that's on the existing portion of the house, back closer towards the chimney, that guy. So he's got a really low roof line in that kitchen. And we had discussed several different ways to pop up that roof to get it a little higher. Initially, we proposed removing the historic roof and just building it up. We are showing we keep it, but the addition comes in higher than that roof line. So the addition comes in closer to where the bird box returns at the existing gable end of the house. And so that way we can keep some datum lines across, and that allows us to pop that ceiling up, because I think it's at 7'8" when I looked it back up. So to get us up a little bit higher in that space. All of this being said, it is a unique site. I'm here to talk through your thoughts, especially with us popping up like we're showing. I know the porte cochere is a whole different of how we detail it and that type of thing. But we also would like, if possible, I know it's hard because of the holidays, but before the next DRC, to do a site visit, if it's possible.
Okay.
We can definitely poll the commission.
Okay.
I'll send out an email to
Okay.
see what their availability is, but it does get a little
I know
tough.
it's tight because of the holidays, but
Yeah.
if not, we'd like to to get it on the calendar as soon as possible.
Yeah, we can definitely send out some dates.
I think that will just be helpful because of the grade change from even the existing garage to the house. I think you'll get a better understanding of some of the challenges that we face from, you can even see from where that man door comes out of the garage faces street level. We can talk through some of the details of why we like the idea of the porte cochere or having something attached to the main house as opposed to the two.
Okay.
Yeah,
Emily?
we drove by it to check it out, and that grade is significant.
It's pretty, yes, it is. It is. And just knowing some of their needs, I've got to be mindful of that.
Okay, so I'll just leave it on this page. So the property at 720 West Main Street fronts two streets, West Main and 8th Avenue North. The house was constructed circa 1880 and is considered an L-shaped bay cottage with folk Victorian adornments. And the accessory structure was constructed circa 1940 and is considered contributing along with the principal building. Within this submittal, there are several options for the proposed addition on the principal building and the accessory structure. So, looking at the both of them, kind of the addition on both of the principal buildings are about the same. With the covered walkway, it looks like it's a little bit bigger than the one with the porte cochere addition. For the garages, let's see if I can zoom it in so I'll get them both bigger on the screen for us. So, putting the addition on the rear of the garage would be a little bit more appropriate since you wouldn't see it as much. If you were to add it like how it's proposed on option 2, it would be more visible from 8th Avenue North. So situating it kind of at the back would be the most appropriate within the guidelines. So option 1 for the garage was the most appropriate. The proposed porte cochere, the guidelines do recommend not adding a porte cochere if it did not exist historically. And also, it would also be highly visible from 8th Avenue North. For the other garage, the zoning ordinance requires that it not exceed 50% of the historic footprint, well, the footprint of the existing principal building. And so as it is, we did a kind of like a rough kind of addition. So if it's 1577 plus the front porch, the addition, and then TBD on that one, it would the addition of the garage and everything would exceed the footprint of the principal building. But this covered walkway addition was more appropriate than the porte cochere option. Then going to the proposal of the front porch railing. So it was included that this on Fair Street, it backs up, it's the sister house. It does have the wood railing, and this has wood railing except for right on the stairs. And so we discussed this at the last DRC, but more information is needed to determine if this alteration is appropriate. The guidelines recommend avoiding adding architectural features that are not original to the historic porch. Utilizing historic photos of the porch and its detailing may allow for a different design of the porch railings or handrails. However, it's helpful to see the sister house on the opposite block face and how its detailing is. And it may very well have had wood hand railings, and in the mid-1900s they were replaced with metal railings. And there were a couple of BNS comments whenever they did review this project, and we can send you those, but it's they're mainly kind of getting at if the accessory structure is used as an accessory dwelling, the owner must live on the property, parkland fees will apply, and additional fees for water and sewer will apply, but we'll send you those in the recap.
That sounds good. Thank you. And I feel like we got adequate feedback on the railings the last time, so I don't necessarily need to talk about that. And I want to go back to your point about the garage. We do we like the garage addition off the rear. That's an option 1 better too, because it's less visible from any of the street sides. It does get a little bit large on the option 2 in order to park a vehicle underneath it.
Okay. And Emily, just kind of putting a synopsis here on your all's recommendations. It's fits the guidelines better, the house footprint of version 2, but the garage footprint of version 1.
Correct.
Okay. All right, we're starting with Kathy. Go. You look like you wanted to talk anyways.
And option 2 is staff's preference on the house because of no porte-cochere.
Correct. Since there hasn't been evidence to show that there was historically a porte-cochere on the property, the guidelines do not support adding one.
I guess, Amanda, I think to help me with porte-cochere is to see more of what it would look like.
It's going to all be in
Versus-
the detailing for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Versus the covered walkway. I do like the elevation where you've popped up the roof to avoid, before it looked like it was all crashing in
Right.
on that one line to follow that roof. And I think it honors the original house better this way. You're stepping it up, it is higher, it's not lower, it's not in line, but I think it still gives the original home the ta-da that you're going after on that one. So I appreciate that. So maybe seeing how porte-cochere ties into that. When I look at how, just back at the site plan again too, I do prefer 1, even with porte-cochere. Covered walkway, because of your way the roof's all kind of wedge in there, you may have to do covered porchway way above the other roof lines, and then it doesn't really work as a covered porchway because it's too tall. So I think I need to see more about that as well, but I understand staff's position. And then, how is the porte-cochere detailed out? It's
Absolutely.
dainty or monumental or magnificent,
It's going to be 2 stories and no, I'm just kidding.
balconies. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bob.
My concern about the porte-cochere is just the grade of it. It just feels like it might be just extraordinarily tall.
Well, no, we would adjust the grade. So that was part of the concern, is because if you park in the parking pad now, you've got to go down pretty significant. So you're going almost down like a speed ramp in a parking garage to go down to the parking pad. So much less on winter weather, any kind of weather at all makes it difficult for my clients to get from point A to point B. And so see how that retaining wall is built up right now where that fence is? So that putting that parking pad and that porte-cochere back there allows us to stay on that level. So the parking pad can get adjusted towards closer to the grade of the house. And then that allows us to not mess with the rest of the lot. It's an interesting lot. Essentially it's what's been done on the entire right side of the property anyway, because you can see the stone foundation lines. So in some way we're honoring that too by carving out this space and creating almost like a courtyard in the back to allow us to park. And when I was talking to them today too, I was, we might treat that differently as well, of using pavers or something that allows even more, some better grip through there. But we would actually have to adjust the grade there to allow us to not drop off the edge. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Which I think helps with the scale of it. In my brain, it's there. We'll sketch it out for the next one.
Holly?
Yeah, I think a site visit would actually be really helpful.
I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, it's not, to me, it's a little hard to visualize without having been there.
It's a challenging site for sure. It's always been one of my favorites as I walk down Main Street. And then when I got the phone call, I was like, yes. And I was like, that one's a little bit of a challenge.
Mary?
I would need to see the
Right.
details. I do think what you've done on the roof, I'd be interested to hear what our architect says, but I can understand wanting more than a 7'8" ceiling. So how you can do the least and achieve some ceiling height. The additions on the house, I like. I do think the addition on the garage is almost, if you went with the one to the side, it's gonna almost look like a house.
Okay. Brian?
So for an aging in place house, it's got to be a good one because the previous owner was in
know.
his late 90s.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's got to be a good house for that.
It is.
But-
Well, and honestly, one thing that's nice about it, because it does have a substantial grade change, is that you can walk. You don't have to traverse stairs to get to your bottom level, because you can, if you would like, you could walk, out and around and down. And that's one thing that we have discussed.
So just a few things that just come to me on this. The wood railing on the steps, I think we have precedent for that. I mean,
Right.
I would be willing to support that.
Right.
I do agree with staff on the porte-cochere. I mean, to me, it just looks like something, I know, almost like it's out of place. And I'm wondering on that addition that you're proposing, what is the width of that addition on the back?
On the addition that we've done the dark gray, or the addition that we're showing as the porte-cochere?
The one in the dark gray. I see the one that's nestled in where the porch
Yes,
thing is
the other
today.
portion.
It's the other part.
It's somewhere around 8 to 9 feet. We're still doing the math and the grade from you to get to point A to point B to figure out how much space we have.
It wouldn't be as large as what you're proposing on the porte-cochere, but could you maybe incorporate some porch that comes off that back? And then the owners would have actually a porch, which would be more in keeping with what you'd see in a house of this
Yeah.
style. And then the other thing that I just wanted
Could
to
one
ask,
park a car under that porch, per se?
well, I would think it'd be a porch. A porch is a porch.
Right.
Because so were you going to park a car under the porte-cochere?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the intention.
All right.
Yes.
I see what you're saying. It's
Yes.
a carport, basically.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so the other thing had to do with just the window placement where you have the addition. I guess there's going to be a kitchen there. Is that where the
Yes.
kitchen's going to be?
Yes.
And I'm
Or
assuming
accessory kitchen.
the center windows are going to be above the sink.
Yes. And that's why they're higher.
So what I was thinking on that, rather than matching the original house height, and let that be its own, that's its own era, its own construction. Because what you're doing now is 21st century. I mean, what if you match the other two that are lower, and then just had a single sash rather than double? Because it's right above the
Yeah.
sink. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, and we can look at it. We've looked at it a couple different ways, but we haven't really dug into the detailing because I think some of the proportions will depend on what we do from that point back. It's interesting because these windows are only about anywhere between 13 and 16 inches off the finished floor, so it's a little bit deceiving when you see it from an exterior elevation. So that's why it does look so much higher because of where we're trying to put it above a countertop in there. But yeah, we can look at it. We just want to make sure we also don't get a large forehead either, but we can look at different sizes and scales that fit.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my concern, is that if that head height there with that particular ceiling and bearing height, you'd have, like, as you described, a large forehead, you'd have a whole bunch of siding above the window. So you get into some scale issues there.
And remember too, it's hard. Well, I mean, you understand, but it's also set back. So,
Yeah.
you know.
And I like that we still have this kind of shed silhouette of the old, lower section, even though it's probably very shallow into the building, and then it's still full height. So I think that's a useful mechanism. I share everybody else's concern about this porte-cochere carport thing. If I were them, sure, I'd love to have it. But I'd want to see what it looks like too before I even considered it. But at first glance, compared to the guidelines, it's like, well, it's just not something we see, and it's against what the guidelines recommend. But I wrote down here that I'd love to see just a blocked out garage elevation with the garage addition kind of facing the side street. And even if it could be kind of shadowed in what that neighboring garage is, because it is a double door, kind of carriage house. So to see those together may not be as kind of overwhelming as we might think it would look. Man, that picture's so warped. It looks like it caught on fire and just kind of melted a little. But to see, without going so crazy into detailing it and spending all kinds of time and fee to do it, to have a little, I know it's not an alley, but that side street elevation just blocked out and go, what do these two options look like massing wise down that side? Because although it is a side street, an official numbered side street, it's not a real generous one.
No, it
is
reads
the
as an
alley
alley.
of,
It really-
of side
it does.
streets.
Right.
So considering
That's
that, I could be a little more flexible, but I can't be more flexible if I don't know what it looks like. I really have to
Yeah.
see it in proportion and height with all that down that side.
And that would be like considering option 2, because
Mm-hmm.
look at that
Yeah.
elevation right now, option 2, the garage juts out
That's right.
even beyond.
And I want to see
image.
option 1 with a portico share in the same view, just to go, and in all transparency, as staff said, it may be that neither one of them looks right, and a garage addition to the interior and no portico share might be the ticket. I just don't know without seeing it.
I agree.
So.
That's fair.
But I don't think at this point I would wholesale throw out any of the options, just throw them away yet. I think they're valid thoughts. I just don't know what they look like in proportion with everything and how you might intend on the roofs working. If you go to the elevations, that roof of the screen porch that's getting closed in, or the porch, makes sense. Another shed off of that. I don't know that end shed is still a shed if there's a portico shed.
Right.
It probably has to do something else.
Right.
I don't know what that is, what you have intended, but I want to see it, I think, to consider it.
Absolutely.
Kathy, you have something else?
When we do a site visit, is there something you can like chalk out or
Absolutely.
give us
Yep.
some little footprints, like
Absolutely.
if we did, because looking at that elevation that you just mentioned about the two existing garages, that elevation, blocking out those two garages.
Absolutely.
And then if you look at the difference between option 1 and option 2, down that street view, that new garage on option 2 really makes an impact of, looks like townhouse garages lined up. So, and you've got dimensions on this too, so we can kind of taper walk that off too to see the distance.
We can
where
flag it or chalk
the
it.
driveway
That's
or
on the-
something,
yes,
but
that's not a problem.
it'll be really fun to get out there and see it.
And we'll have
we've got
it
a
further
challenge.
developed as well, because we're still working out some of the math with the grading, and that's why we're a little bit more schematic in nature. But we'll have that part figured out too, so we can
Okay.
look at it with the grade.
Good, thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, don't throw anything out.
Yeah, I don't see anything here that goes, definitely not that one.
Right, right.
The guidelines don't love either version, but
Right, it's tricky.
they're variations on it. So, okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Item 5, alterations at 127 Second Avenue North. Alan Meyer. Meyer?
It's Mayor, but
Mayor.
he's actually not here to represent us.
Oh,
He
man.
made the submission, but we met
All right.
with Emily and Elizabeth.
Make sure your green button's on and tell us who you officially are.
Not holding any secrets. My name is Eric McGinnis. I'm the founder of Common Design Works. We're an architecture firm here in the region.
I'm Carlos Tirado, resident here in Franklin and business owner of the proposal.
Did you say Estrado?
Torado.
Torado.
Yep.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Ariane Harrison. I work at Comma.
Okay. Ariane Harrison. Okay, give us a couple minute overview of what you're doing here.
Sure. So we are here proposing alterations to an existing building at 127 2nd Avenue North. This is the old Chef Piano Studio and directly across from the Harpeth Hotel garage entry. You probably all know the building well. So we are proposing that this building be changed into the Franklin Butchery, which is the business owned by Carlos, and which will house a butcher service, but also be a restaurant, sandwich shop, etc. And so, as part of that change of use, there are exterior alterations that we are looking to make to the building. And so, we have done some due diligence in terms of understanding what the existing context is, what the existing building is, knowing that making any alterations, would require a submittal and approval to this board and to the Historic Commission. So in looking at the building, currently it's completely painted black, and it has a variety of openings of all different, what appears to be all different ages, types of finishes, types of openings, different doors, etc. And so we tried to do, kind of take account of what is there and try to understand what the context of that installation is. So as part of that, we have put together here on this GN02 sheet where, we're listing out kind of all the alterations that we are looking to make and whether they do or do not abide by the guidelines. Of course, we would look to Emily as well for her commentary on that to make sure we're within the right, language there. And so, if it's okay, I think I'll jump in to just read through all the alterations that we're looking to make. And then, of course, I know this is a robust one, so we'll jump back to any that need further discussion. But I'll just throw that out there because I don't want to, bore anyone, but I think it's important that we touch on each one.
Okay.
So starting on the northeast, this is a street-facing wall. We're proposing to remove and replace the existing aluminum storefront with a new black storefront with muntins. Accordance with guidelines, we would say no, this is not in accordance with guidelines because existing storefront is recommended to remain, although there's additional context to be supplied on that existing storefront as we believe it not to be original, although we can't prove that. This building in general, we have reached out to the historian and cannot, get any confirmation in terms of the construction timeline for this building. We believe it to be potentially late 1960s to early 1970s, with many alterations made, as you can see in some of the photographs. So in addition to the storefront, we propose removing the previous blade sign and replacing with a new blade sign, which may be within the guidelines, assuming that we meet the historic zoning guidelines for signage. Adding a new band sign, black matte letters on white background. Yes, that could meet the guidelines. If the color is approved, it may be a deviation from the recommended colorways of signage. On the southeast wall, this is the entry side that works off of the parking for the business. There's an existing window. It matches the aluminum storefront that is on the street-facing side. Given the interior blocking for that window, we presume it not to be original because there's some toothing of the CMU block where it appears to be toothed in at a later date after original construction. That would be blocked in to make room for new openings above that wall. We are proposing to add 5 punched openings above that at a higher elevation to create natural light into the space, which is very limited at this point since this is a very deep building and this is a mercantile/restaurant use, trying to get natural light and some you might call it making it more approachable potentially from the street. We are proposing to remove the existing non-ADA compliant door and replacing with an ADA compliant door, double door. So this would be widening an existing opening to allow for a double door. The existing door on that side is certainly not original. It appears to be almost a residential style door, as they kind of all appear to be residential style doors in different kinds of finishes, materials, and aesthetics. we're proposing to add 2 new wall sconces at the new entry. We don't believe there's any issue with doing that. Of course, we would provide the fixtures to the Historical Zoning Commission if requested. And then adding a new band sign to this side of the building off of the parking. This is a very long and deep building. We have a street frontage and we also have a parking frontage. We're proposing adding signage to both of those entries. We understand that 2 band signs on a building is not within the guidelines, but because of the separation of the signage, we're asking for relief from that requirement because we do feel we have kind of 2 distinct entries that are separated by a substantial amount of wall, and that they both kind of approach different clientele, one from the parking lot and one from the street. That's all for the south side. For the southwest, the rear side, we are looking to make this back area that really is just concrete right now, a small patio area that could have some seating, and this is directly off the back side of the building. It's kind of in between this and another building that is actually part of the same parcel that we are not touching. And the door, to this back side would also be modified, which is clearly not original. In some of the interior photographs, you can see that it was framed up with just some 2x4s and, it's kind of a residential style door once again. So we would add posts back there just to provide some accent lighting for a small patio area that's off the restaurant. Adding 3 exterior pendants to the existing canopy. This is just to provide, safety lighting or even emergency lighting at some of these exterior doors. And then the existing door panel with new black door panel with muntins on that south side. So that's the rear side of the building off of a patio. On the southeast side, there is a couple of existing windows and an existing door. We do not believe that one of the windows, we certainly don't believe that one of the windows is original at all. It's hard to say if the other window is. It's at the rear of the building. That will be off of the kitchen space. There's no real evidence one way or another whether it's original or not, although it does appear to be one of the older windows in the building. The other windows are consistent with the aluminum storefront, which again we do not believe to be original to the building. And yeah, on that side as well, just to remove all of the windows and to fill to match the existing wall construction. This is just given the program of the space, into a kitchen area, and with no confirming evidence of any originality to the components. So relative to the building itself, obviously it was all painted black. We are proposing repainting the building with a different colorway. We understand that within the guidelines, we are able to paint the building since the building is entirely painted right now, although we also understand that there may be commentary relative to the color choices, any of the look and feel of the building, et cetera, that we can react to. This building was built, really in a modern era of architecture in the 60s and 70s. They were building in this way that was almost monolithic and straight lines and square edges. And so obviously we have to react to that in some way. I think we are proposing to put in some details relative to some of the openings and some of the new storefront detailing that actually harkens back to maybe more historic nature than some of the existing storefront materials, that being something that may replicate, the scale of muntins of steel windows of the past, et cetera, that have a higher maybe detail level than the existing aluminum storefront that's currently installed on the frontage. I know that's longer than two or 3 minutes, but
Well, I didn't want to cut you off.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's hear staff's comments, and they will probably address all of the above. So
Okay.
let's let them go through that.
So, since we've met, we do have an update for you all. We did some research. Since this building was built in the circa 1960, the National Register in 2019 did deem this building to be non-contributing. And so our guidelines went in a little bit more detail. So that means we would apply the non-historic commercial building. Whenever we spoke, we thought about applying the historic.
Right.
So therefore, the non-historic has a little bit more flexibility, which could be a good thing for you all. And non-historic buildings are considered non-contributing because they were not constructed during the period of significance for the district. So we'll just walk through it, kind of like how you all walk through your proposal. We'll start with the front. So the storefront is proposed to change, and it is proposing to have the different mutton patterns. Within the submittal, there were there's an example of kind of across the street at the restaurant at the hotel, and it doesn't utilize the horizontal muttons in it. So that may be something to consider. The guidelines, would support, matching something that's seen in the district. So maybe utilizing a design that doesn't have as many of the horizontal members would be a little bit more complementary to the district. For wall signs, the guidelines can recommend having one wall sign per building facade. So therefore, you can have one per this facade and then one on the side. And so the guidelines do recommend that it should be 9 square feet. So while I believe it does exceed the 9 square feet, it would meet the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance would look at, you would measure from this farthest outside corner all the way to the other farthest outside corner. So if the sign did meet that 1 square, I think it's 1 square foot per
linear foot.
Yes.
Frontage.
So then that would meet the zoning ordinance for that sign.
Right.
Yeah, the way that we measured at least this front one, it's from the outside edge of the black, which is 22 feet, and the square footage of that sign is 16 square feet.
Okay, great. So, moving on to, we'll just discuss this side. So, here is the existing side. So, there are the aluminum windows that are existing. Per the zoning ordinance, there are the guidelines do recommend maintaining a traditional solid to void ratio on building walls that are similar to those seen on historic buildings in the district. So maintaining these existing openings would be supported. Same thing on the other side. Let's see, I believe it's, the next page. So the zoning ordinance does require a certain amount of verticality for the windows. And so the proposed ribbon windows do not meet the requirements for the commercial mixed uses of the buildings. For this sign, the same thing. For the wall sign, it can be however large. The guidelines do recommend it to be 9 square feet, but the zoning ordinance does allow for it to be a little bit bigger. Let's see, I'll go to the street view.
Last one would be 6 square feet. So it should
Oh,
fall in.
perfect. So that meets the guidelines. So let me go just a little bit farther out for street view. So the proposed entrance is proposed to be widening this entrance a little bit. This is farther back on the building, so that does offer a little bit more flexibility within the guidelines. The rear alterations are in the rear, so they wouldn't be seen from the street view. And then we also wanted to comment on the proposed hanging projecting sign. It does appear to meet the guidelines For size, we did want to comment that the guidelines do recommend a maximum of 3 colors with a darker background color than the lettering color. It's also recommended to use muted colors that complement the facade and vibrant colors to be considered as an accent. And it just appears that in this rendering, this reddish orangey color looks a little bit more vibrant than what the guidelines recommend. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, I think it's Mary's turn.
Okay. Where to start? On the front, storefront, I agree with what staff was saying. Just simplify that. I don't think I have a problem with changing it. We are getting ready to redo our preservation plan, and I think I would be surprised if this doesn't turn out to be contributing when it's revisited, that the period of significance might get looked at a little bit different. But I still do not have a problem with changing that storefront somewhat. The big white band with the lettering goes against our guidelines. You would expect to have a dark background with lighter lettering. Let's see. That I agree with the change to the door on the side. I agree with what you said. Let's see. I'm having a problem. I really think the way you've done the windows kind of works with this building, but I don't know where it stands if it goes against the city. I don't know, where does that put them? Do they have to go down
It does.
zoning appeals and everything else?
That's something that we could potentially look at the design guidelines to see if there's something that supersedes the zoning ordinance on. We hadn't done that at this point.
I would want them to know about it. I think the door on that side, to me, it's a bit overdone for the building. Might take a look at some way to, and I feel like I also think the lights that were shown in your drawings are not sympathetic to the style of this building. Might look at something that's would be seen a little bit more in this period of building.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't know where the city stands now on lights like you've got on the back. I really like them, but I know a couple of businesses were told you couldn't do that. Can you now do that?
We had a discussion, I think, with Emily just regarding the context of this review versus another review that may be more of just the zoning review, and that they wouldn't be necessarily reviewed by this board, but we may have to have more conversation with zoning.
About that.
That's right.
I think where it's placed, I don't have a problem, but I thought you were very articulate. Thank you.
And
Thank you, Mary.
just to clarify, the string lights can be installed.
They can be
Yeah.
used now.
Yeah.
Good. Holly?
So the windows that you guys, Mary was talking about, I think those look really good with the style of building. So I hope that that's something that can be visited as an option, because I think it would help be really nice. I think it makes the building kind of more of the style that it is, rather than less. So I think that's great. And then I think I like how you did the storefront and the replacement glass. I think if staff recommended it being horizontal only, I think that would be fine too. But I think the way it is, it's kind of neutral in the historic sense. I think it works great. Or if something else was more looked upon favorably, that would be fine too. But I think it's an improvement. And then a couple more things. I actually think the lanterns in the back, style-wise, I think, so this building isn't the historic style that you're typically, this is more mid-century. So I'm fine with them being more traditional, because I don't think that just because it's a mid-century building, you should have to put mid-century lights if that's not the style that you're going for. So I think it's kind of like a good bridge between the historic district with more of traditional lights and this mid-century building. So my only actual comment, it really probably doesn't have, it has to do with color, and I know that that's up to you guys and optional, but I think the black and white is just so trendy that I would love it to not be that, but again, that's not what we have to, it's, I guess, up to you, and so but I think the signage looks really good. I think you did a really nice job. So as far as it being a good mix of historic and the kind of mid-century style that it is, I think you did a good job of putting them together and making it fit with both the historic look of the area and the mid-century feel of the building. So
Appreciate that. Just, in response to maybe some of the coloring, I think we will provide more specifics on the color. I think the intent is not to go hard white, hard black, and kind of play into this, kind of modern motif that people are have become interested in all over this region for sure. But to maybe soften that, right, and to maybe have what could be deemed maybe a warmer charcoal gray with kind of a cream white, and really soften those edges and not try to have it be stark. I think the intent is to really brighten this up from the street, not have it, certainly not try to make it disappear from the street, and to really create kind of an inviting, facade especially on the two public sides. So that's the intent. So I totally hear you. We've had the internal conversation about the whole black white thing and how that's like, in some ways it's hopefully run its course, but our intent is to maybe soften those edges a bit and to create something that's brighter.
Good.
Yep.
Kathy?
Yeah, you have a open palette here with it being this charcoal gray black thing, but when I squint and look at the original to the proposal too, makes me think, have you ever dug up to see what this building originally looked like?
We made an effort. We did contact Rick Warwick, and he had no feedback or imagery on the history of this, other than it was the S.E. Farnsworth building supply building, I think, originally. And then we know it's more recent history, of course. But there wasn't, we have been unable to find, even through the historian, any imagery of what it was when it was originally built.
Well, CMU's not, the flashiest building product, but one of the feelings that I get when I look at the imagery of the proposal, the front facade and the side facade with the windows, is it comes off feeling very factory or shopping mall-esque. Those narrow windows look more like a factory window or some type of a processing plant place, just the size of them. So I do agree with the city requiring them to be a little bit bigger. But that big band across the front looks very, very retro shopping mall, big, bold thing. So I think it's weighting the whole space of, the scale of it. So the mass. And that's one of the things that I think when you have this blank slate, you have to be careful how you pick elements. That banding is a strong weighted element up there. And so I'd like to see how y'all finesse that with massing, how that looks on that front facade as well. And then breaking up the massing, it has no roof. It's a flat roof, right?
That's correct.
So we have no pitch or anything to give us interest on that long facade. So again, consider your massing on that as well. What else? It's an interesting project. I get the red. Oops, and the signage is too overscaled, is that right? It's too much square footage on the front,
On the front, it is appropriate on the side
the blade.
for, well, for the wall signs.
Okay.
But on the front, it does meet the zoning ordinance
Okay.
for wall signs.
Emily, can you say that what the historic requirement for the wall sign would be on the front so we can understand to what extent we're over?
Sure. So on the front, the guidelines recommend it to be 9 square feet. And so for the total size. So I will say that the commission has approved in the past. So if it is a white background, they have approved black pen lettering. And so we have several examples of that downtown. It does exceed, this one does exceed the size requirement, but it does meet the zoning ordinance. And so we measure it however many square feet in width this is. It can be however many square feet the sign for the sign.
Understood. Thanks.
One other quick question, Sue, about your window modular front door elevation. It's a 9-foot tall door. Is that a 6.0 opening for the door?
That's correct.
So and you're showing the hinges, so it's the whole 9 feet that's opening as a door, as opposed to like breaking it with that top mullion for a lower door. So you might have to have more substantial mullion size. I don't know, but
Sure.
it just, I like how it looks, and I get the 4 divisions with the pair of doors. But somehow that full height door opening, I don't know about that one yet.
Sure. Yeah, I think we would expect that within standard storefront system that we would be able to achieve a 9-foot tall door. We've certainly installed them before. It doesn't necessarily mean that maybe the construction of that doesn't have a higher gauge metal here or there, but certainly we would expect to be able to achieve this look.
Okay. Bob?
I really like this restrained aesthetic. I think one thing you might really want to look at and really look hard at your light fixtures.
Sure.
Because you have restrained so much, they're going to be very prominent.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we do have some detail work to do in terms of being able to present exact fixtures and even potentially install images of what that fixture looks like in order to have proof of concept there. We do understand they will be prominent on something that is relatively modern for the area. It's relatively simple for the area in terms of the detailing, and that those will come to the forefront for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I like what you presented here, almost wholly. I like you're trying to pull off this steel look in the front. I think it's fine. The building is non-contributing to the era of the neighborhood, but I still consider it an important kind of piece of Franklin's downtown. I actually like that it is taking sort of a backseat to what is kind of more ornate downtown. We have, everything from Victorians to Federals that are simpler in detailing. So I like this. I like the frame. You're kind of given this form in terms of massing. You're not doing anything to this ribbon and all that except paint. So I like the size of the sign. The blade or hanging flop sign. What's the term?
Hanging, small hanging projecting sign.
Projectile sign. When I look at the renderings, your palette are these neutrals, which I like. You're allowing the rest of downtown to be what it is, and you're set apart. I like that. The renderings, the red is screaming off of your palette. I mean, if you had a red brick building, I'd go, well, she sits in there nice.
Yeah.
So you might, if there's some ways to think of the sign, I think the previous folks had that black and white piano sign. If the red were trended towards some more of the burgundy, just kind of more muted. I think that could be helpful. The window openings, I really don't have a problem with modifying anything up and down the sides. But because the zoning ordinance says they need to be kind of a vertical orientation,
Right.
you know, not landscape, but portrait. If you could look at those, that's helpful. I agree with Mary that side entrance is, I don't know what it is. It doesn't feel right. It's like it's some mini form of triumphant, like it's got
Yeah.
this copycat frame.
Mm-hmm.
It could be just as successful, and I think you're allowed to have a sign on a canopy. So it could be just a nice, simple wedge canopy. You could have signage on it. There's some rules to that, but all of a sudden you get another spot to put signage and logo. It's a covered entrance. I'd be all over that. I'd be happy to do that. So I think you're real close. I like the simplicity of it. I think it takes a good backseat to things that are just a little older and represent the age of the district better than this one. Not that this doesn't play its part, but it's always just played a supporting role.
You got to
So,
know your role.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So, did you have something else?
Something else? So I do agree with several of the commissioners on the ribbon signs. I mean, the ribbon windows. I think they do complement the building, specifically because it's non-conforming and it's interior facing.
Yeah.
I'm going to advocate for the color that you have on your blade sign. And I'll tell you why, because what I'm suspecting that is the Pantone color for the Tennessee state flag. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Because you have the TriStar logo, and that just kind of works with that. And, you know, I don't consider the color that we have with the Tennessee state flag to be bright neon, flashy. I think it's a nice color. So, but I think that's what you're going for, and not really a...
Yeah, it is. It's to look at a moment that is perpendicular to the street and to say, you know, if you're facing this building from the street, that maybe this isn't the most prominent, you know, object in your face. But it is an opportunity to bring in branding and to bring in, you know, their traditional logo that they've created that does harken back to the Tennessee state flag into the design in some way, even if it's a less, you know, you may call it obtrusive way than, you know, painting the signage backdrop, you know, above the front door that color. So yeah, it was a way to try to introduce their actual branding into the building without letting it be overpowering. So I appreciate the advocation. You know, I think you know, we can certainly discuss with Carlos, but I think that branding is important to him.
Sure.
We would love to try to keep that. And, you know, I think we can provide more imagery as well, and even some Pantone, you know, examples of what that color is, so we can see maybe it is more muted than maybe a bright screen shows.
We do have hats made already. It does sit on a almost like a navy blue background as well, so it does kind of blend in. So when you see that the whole logo together, it does mesh well together, almost like the blue sits on the red right there on the actual flag. It's just a little bit reversed.
Can you pull up the door handles too? I want to make sure everybody sees the butcher blades. And my only comment is, I think they're interesting. If it were on any other building downtown that wasn't this one, I'd go, it's too cutesy.
A little cutesy.
What
yeah.
I would say about finish is, I think they're shown as like chrome. If they were more like a hand forged, so like cleaver, like black, if that's possible, I think it, especially because you're kind of showing this bronze storefront thing, that's if it's chrome, it's going to be screaming.
Yeah, I think
so
we
that's
would
the only
work
thought.
towards that. You know, even if they were custom created, I think we would work towards a finish like that naturally. I will say that our only goal with these is to go on the side entry and not on the street facing main entry.
Okay, cool.
Well, I will say, Mr. Chair, I've been sitting here trying to find a historic photograph because this was such a vibrant business, and
Nothing?
I'm surprised there wasn't one posted, but I
Somebody
haven't
has a
found
picture.
it.
Yes, ma'am.
to add to your point, if the side entrance were to utilize a awning sign, then we could consider the sign over the front entrance to be a band sign. And so then that would meet the guidelines. The guidelines for
Size.
band sign does it kind of like how wall signs, they measure it from the front facade.
Okay. So maybe
There
a
you
good,
go.
Well,
get you
we
where
will
you need to go.
absolutely take that into consideration when we go back and look at this, and in retrospect with all the other comments for sure.
And people are going to go on the side entry just to pull those butcher.
I think they will.
I do too.
It's a little unnerving, honestly, when you first go up to it, but I
It's
think
all about
that-
attention to detail, too.
I think so.
One other thing, too, I noticed on the drawing, on that elevation of the side double doors, there's a note towards the front facade that says existing facade to be painted with mural design to be submitted at a later date. Where's the mural going?
The real answer is that we don't know, and we are asking to just really kind of remove the review of that. I think we'll remove any notes that are relative,
Okay.
that are relevant to a
You didn't
mural
draw it,
from this.
so-
We did not draw it, therefore we don't want to present anything. We know that it goes through its own review process, including the Arts Commission, et cetera. And, I think we're all in agreement here that that would happen at a later date if it does happen. Certainly, Carlos is a resident here. I think the intent of any mural isn't to be additional signage for the building as much as it is to be an art piece for the city, something, that locals have a hand in, that represents potentially the historic nature of this area, et cetera. And so we're not ready to present that, therefore we are not going to.
Ms. Harrison, did you have something you were going to add on the hardware?
Well, I had a couple of things. The side entry is also the only existing ADA entry.
Okay.
As far as like the level of the ground and the interior goes. So that's a really important one for us to be able to widen and everything. And one thing about the sign color, there are existing red signs on the street already for some other businesses, as well as like a bright red entry door. So,
Yeah, you have some examples in here.
yeah.
And some of those were done before the current guidelines. And then front door color is,
Not controlled.
Not the same as signs. So,
That's fair.
but yeah,
And-
I think I took those points on the sign with the color. It could be okay, but you can look at the rendering and that's the one thing that stands out, which is from a business owner standpoint, you're like, yeah, exactly. So I get it. But we have to play that kind of fine line guardians of people overdoing it. I don't think this is overdone, but the guidelines are written so that people don't approach getting overdone. You end up here with something that's tasteful, which I think you've brought something tasteful, but it may not meet what the guidelines say, but we review those and closely. So
Yeah, and as I remember, I think our last historic zoning meeting, we approved a pretty red sign that
Yep.
was on the building.
Tomato sauce red.
Right. And Tyler, would you go over when you're talking about the side door, because she said it needed to be handicapped accessible. You're
Yeah.
not contemplating.
I think the way they present it is fine. I think that little frame
Yeah.
there is maybe just too fabricated and copycat
Yeah.
to the front. My thought was if you've got the two lights and they're appropriate for kind of a mid-century modern building, even more contemporary looking than those, and you have a canopy with signage on it, it might accomplish a lot of things like allowing you to do the size sign you want on the front without any variance of any kind. Another sign, covered entry at your ADA, I think it wins for everybody. So I'd look at it.
All fair points. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Mary, I have to go,
Oh, dear.
which means you get to do the last one.
One, okay.
It's right there.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. And I'm going to try and remember how to say his name. Katsadis, Michael.
we do.
Come on
There
up.
were
And
two
I'm
left.
sorry I have to leave. I
One
really
of 'em
wanted
were
to
not.
give you comments. I'm the meanest one up here. You should be happy I'm leaving.
So, It's item 6, and it is discussion of new construction principle at 115 Winslow Road. And Michael,
Michael Katsidis
who
with,
could not possibly be Greek.
I'm sorry?
No possible Greek in that name.
No, not at all. Michael Katsidis, MK Studio, representing my client, Doug Majors Construction. Based on the feedback and comments from our previous meeting a couple months ago, we scratched that previous plan and went to a new direction, more of in line with scale and massing of what you guys were commenting on. So based on that, we submitted this new plan, new layout, new facade, went from French eclectic to strict Tudor elevation and style. We have some pictures of obviously the existing property, some context imagery on Winslow and Miles Manor Court. The two adjacent properties, 111 Winslow and 119 Winslow, the Anderson residence. And then we took a lot of character from 121 Miles Manor. We drew a lot of inspiration from that and some other homes around Franklin as far as the Tudor style. With a prominent chimney at the front of the house, similar to these images. Some of these homes are not in Franklin. Some of them are in St. Louis, Kansas City. So some of them are in Franklin. So with that, do you want to go to the last page? Let's show the renderings. Yeah. So the top left, you can see the kind of the little wing wall at the front. On the perspectives and the renderings, we've added some buttressed at wings at the front facade, front entry element. We wanted to feel we wanted to feel the attached garage feel like it was an addition to the previous original house. We might want to change behind that kitchen gable right there where, yeah, there you go, that. We might want to change that to siding to match the garage and not make it brick like the main house is. So yeah, we might want to change that. As far as the colors, we definitely want to do original, natural brick. We're kind of leaning towards the brown family. We're not settled on as far as the colors yet, but we definitely want to have some kind of contrast on the siding and half timbering. Of course, you can't see the timbering on that gable. Yep. And then you can see kind of the front facade on the next, to the right. So the limestone headers or limestone art, jack arches, limestone, big chunky stone for the buttressed entry. Wing walls emulating both left and right homes, so tying those properties together. Simple steps and lead walk to the house, addressing the slope of the property. And then timbering again, yeah, you can't see that, but it's tone, color on color. A little close up. Yeah, we've seen that. And then the rear facade with the pool and the carriage garage and how it's attached to the house. Same, and kind of overview over bird's eye view of the motor court. And the bird's eye view between 119 and 115, the subject property of the two pools right next to each other with a fence and landscape around that. While I was in here, I was, for some reason, I don't know why, the dormer on the left of the carriage garage does not align with the windows below it. I'm gonna shift it over and align them. It look off-centered. Well, it is off-centered. It doesn't look like it, but they are. And it makes sense to move it floor plan wise as well.
Can staff slide the picture back over so we can see the neighbors in the context? Okay.
From the front or
Thank
for
you.
the rear?
Both.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And
I
Okay.
didn't have time to do the fly around like the
Gotcha.
previous, but
gotcha. Okay. And staff?
All right, well, thank you. And we'd
Yeah.
like to thank the applicant for returning to DRC and meeting with staff since they attended in October. And they've incorporated a lot of design feedback that they received during these meetings. And the new design is more complementary to the character of the historic district and is more similar in design to some of the more recent infill projects within the historic district. The proposed building is now in the Tudor style. The scale and proportions of elements have greatly improved to be more compatible with the adjacent historic structures. The windows and front entrance appear to be still out of proportion with what is seen on the nearby historic buildings, as the windows appear much larger. The floor to ceiling height is appropriate at 10 feet. Due to the changing grade along Winslow Road, the foundation heights are varied, but the proposed foundation seems to be consistent with the heights of what is seen on the adjacent structures. The window heights are inconsistent as stated. The door height appears to be greater than what is seen on the adjacent structures as well. The proposed placement and orientation is appropriate. The location does not make this building more prominent, and it does not block the view of historic buildings. It maintains the spacing and pattern of development that is seen on the block face. The area does generally have more detached garages. The proposed garage is set back to appear as being detached, and that is, the guidelines would recommend that if it is attached, to make it appear if it were detached. The proposed footprint is 34% of the lot and is within recommendations of the guidelines. The proposed height is appropriate as well within that 10% average. It is 27 feet and 11 inches. The allowance is 28 feet. The roof shape, pitch, and complexity is a little more complex and steep than what is seen on adjacent historic buildings. The roof pitch that is proposed is more consistent with the Tudor style. The approved pitch at the Magnolia Hall Tudor was 17/12 for the gables, and in Splendor Ridge, the Tudor has a pitch of 15/12. And so this is proposed to be 16/12. So that is in between what has been previously approved. But the more historic Tudor styles within Franklin do seem to have less steep pitches in most cases, but there are some examples where they are a little more steep. The roof and facade breaks, as seen from the front, are more similar in form to what is seen in the district. However, as the building transitions to the rear, excluding the garage, the roof form introduces more varied elements that are a little less typical than what you see. A stoop is proposed at the front, and the brick material, and thank you for clarifying, in some of the renderings, the stonework on the side was not in those, so thank you for clarifying that is something that you are proposing to do. And that adds a little bit more ornamentation and style to that front entrance as well. The side stoop is minimal and the rear porch will not be visible and appears to be subordinate in character and detailing as well. And with the change in grade, the proposed foundation line seems consistent, but we do need the foundation heights to be confirmed with staff just to make sure they're at least 18 inches, but reduced foundation heights are allowed to be more compatible with the adjacent properties. For the materials, the use of brick as the primary materials are and siding as primary materials are complementary materials to what is seen in the surrounding district. The reveal of the lap siding is needed, and a composition shingle roof is proposed and is appropriate. While the commission does not review paint color for siding, the color that is inherent to the material can be reviewed, and the brick color is of a variation that is a bit different than what is seen in the historic buildings, and staff would appreciate feedback on that. There is a lot more variation of the stone color that is on Winslow Road. As you approach the front, there's so much more yellow stones, variation seen in that. The dormers that are proposed are recessed, and this is kind of a more contemporary take on adding a dormer to a steeper pitched roof, and that is more common on steeped pitched roof, which is of the style. And the dormers on the front of the garage, I believe a set of them is still on the ridge line, or appears to kind of be on the ridge line, just to make sure that those are off of the ridge line.
They are off.
Okay. And so one
Slightly, but they're off.
one chimney is proposed at the front of the building. This is characteristic of the style. The size of the chimney is larger than what is seen on neighboring historic houses in height, and the verticality of the brick detailing accentuates the height and size of the chimney. The detailing on the chimney of the Tudor style is seen throughout the example images that have been provided, so staff would like some more direct feedback on kind of the ornamentation that's detailed on the chimney. Otherwise, the details and ornamentation are more simple and relate to the simple design seen in the district, and the use of fin wall detailing is seen on the adjacent property and is of what was once the standing accessory structure where this home is proposed to. That was on that building. So you've clarified the stoop detailing, and these detailings do not appear to compete, overpower, or negatively impact the nearby historic buildings. The scale of the front entrance does seem larger than what is seen on this block. Just clarifying the building entrance heights, the materials and style of the door are consistent with what is seen on the nearby historic buildings. For the windows, the rhythm and spacing of the windows have improved and are more appropriate. Large masses of blank walls are avoided. The size of the windows on the front facade, rear, and some of the side elevations are taller and larger than what you would typically find on the historic buildings. The scale of these windows creates a more modern feeling to the building. These windows are nearly as large as the front entrance feature as well. The windows do appear to be recessed into the brick, and there is a surround around the frame portions of the building, which is appropriate. And the window specifications have not been provided at this time, but they do appear to be double hung. So we'd just like some more specific feedback to help the applicant get some more design finalizations done with the fin wall, appropriateness of those, the stoop, the recessed dormers, window and door proportions on the front of the building, the chimney ornamentation, and also just the walkways should follow a historic pattern, and as presented, they appear a little more grand and larger than what is traditionally seen as walkways in the historic district. So that is all.
If I may address the door height, the door is 8 feet tall, so the top of the other windows are at 8 feet, aligning with the top of the window. The windows in the dining room and in the study are currently shown as 7 feet tall, so that's a 7 foot tall window. Yes, definitely taller than historic homes. But again, it's a 10-foot ceiling. That door needs to be a little taller than 6, 8, or 7 feet tall. And those windows, those adjacent windows, I would like to keep them aligned with the door themselves. So, the chimney and the verticality detail of that recessed brick, if you scroll back up into the a simple image, the sample imagery. Up a little further. Second or third page, perhaps fourth page. Yeah, one of those. Yeah, right there. No. Colored image, pictures. This one. So you can see, especially that lower left corner, you see how that void is in that chimney. Look at that stone, though. So trying to emulate that kind of without creating a big void that birds can nest in.
So it's just a recess.
Yes, ma'am. Similar to that arched, on that stucco Tudor home on the upper, yeah. Is there something on that right corner? Can you zoom in there? Oh, no, it's just water stain.
Okay.
So,
Is there anyone that would like to kick this off? Okay, thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome. Thank you for a lovely package of imagery. It really helps. And I am really focused in on your streetscape. And when I look at the other two on the left, and then there's your project 115 and then 119, and massing of it again. What we've seen in the past too is the garage sort of slipping behind the proper home, like in Splendor Ridge, where a lot of those garages were somewhat either detached or attached, but they did not take as much precedence as the major home. So I'm finding the garage element to be very, very close in massing to your home. Seems like those the garage needs to take a minor role when I look at that streetscape imagery. And you are at a higher grade, so good job on your heights there. And thank you for providing that with us with the home on 119. I'll stop there for right now.
Okay. Anyone else have any? You look like you're ready to speak, Bob.
I was just going to say, it's a very handsome looking plan. I don't know why, I'm just feel real funny about the fin walls being different. One side's a different size than the other.
yeah, it's the setback. I don't want to encroach into the other property.
Right.
So that's why it's there. The top of the wing walls are at the same height, left and right, and on the right, the grade drops drastically. And that's why we can lower it, the right wing wall, but then it's not going to align with the left, and it doesn't have to align.
Right. And it would even be a
Or we can totally eliminate
very
it.
handsome house without them.
Yeah, we can definitely eliminate that too.
Would you eliminate both wing walls or
Yes.
just one?
Both.
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 Okay.
I would.
Oh,
What would do you like the little detailing on either side of the front entrance?
It could have a little, in my mind, it could maybe, I think the wing walls are too exaggerated, and I think they're eye-catching in this neighborhood.
Mary, which wing walls you talking about, on the main house, the one by the front entries?
Well, the one, if I'm facing the screen to the right,
that one?
That one particularly, I think the other one is too exaggerated in my mind.
all right. The other, if I may.
Yes.
The other item, why we added that wing wall, is on the Andersons, we have the HVAC equipment behind there, and on this subject, the HVAC is behind that, so we're trying to hide it as well,
Correct.
hide
And
the
I think
HVAC.
there could be something to do
Rather than
that.
just landscape, let's have architecture hide and create that buffer. But I'll take,
And Michael, you've done a beautiful job on the renderings. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And you've worked hard on this, I can tell. One thing for me on the wing walls, number one, it harkens back to what was torn down. It had wing walls in the garage that was there before. And number two is when you have these very steep 16 by 16 roof lines or pitches on your gable, it softens, it actually, to me, it softens the eye as it rolls up and then to that pitch, rather than just being very abrupt as it comes down.
Reduces the mass.
So
it gives it a base, it gives it a foundation.
So I agree with staff comments too, but I also agree with Kathy about the massing. There's something thank you for showing us the comparisons. But it's something about the massing, and I think it does have to do with the garage, that really kind of overwhelms the house either to the left of you here, and maybe some to the one to the right.
Well, that front, the one with the window in it that goes straight up, to me, it's very strong for here. I think it's hard to compare this to Splendor Ridge because this is a historic neighborhood with existing houses. So to my eye is going to run completely to this house in the context of that block face. It's beautiful. And I think I agree that the garage is just going to add to that massing.
With a garage placement, we don't have the depth for a turnaround to happen. Otherwise, the occupant will have to reverse it out of his garage all the way out. And we are providing a turnaround spot right there in front of the kitchen that somebody can back up and do a 3-point turn and depart front face.
What is the height of the garage?
8 feet tall. 8 feet, the garage or the garage door?
The garage itself, in comparison to the house.
It's about 2.5 feet lower than the main ridge.
And how about square footage for the entire house with the garage, since they're attached?
With the garage. So the main house is 4,500 square feet. The carriage or the garage itself is another 660 square feet, and the flex room above it is another 400. So it's about 1,000 square feet. So a total of 6,000 square feet total. Garage, main house, and carriage flex room above the garage.
Okay.
So 6,000 total.
Which on that block face is getting up to what, almost double the size of some of those houses. If I had to guess.
I can't tell you. I don't know the square footage. I can tell you the Andersons is about on 119 is about the same square footage.
Same square footage.
On 119.
I did not realize it was that big, but from being in it, but maybe it is.
It's just more condensed on their lot width.
Lot, is that it?
And the garage is behind it.
Behind it.
And that was sort of what I referred to as Splendor Ridge, meaning that it was
and the other
behind
thing
it.
is that we wanted the garage to be attached to the house for ease of use, rather than having it detached with a breezeway, and kind of try to hide it behind the main facade and main structure. So.
And maybe with, as far as the massing goes, to reduce that of the garage, maybe it's the dormers that are very bold. and a statement, but you know, that streetscape is so informative to me, to help me see it in relationship to what it's going to be nestled in between as well.
On 111, if we did have a bird's eye view of 111 Winslow, yeah, the two-car garage is behind the main structure. But again, on 119, the beauty of 119, 115, is that we have a wider lot, and we can push the garage to the left of the main structure. That way, the ease of the garage parking and departure.
So your lot, do you not have the depth to actually?
I do not have the depth
to place the
push
garage
it,
behind
the garage any farther.
And the garage, at least on that streetscape, looks like the height is taller than the house to its left. Is that right?
It's probably a little taller than the garage on 111.
I would.
But it's definitely lower than the main house.
Yes, but I think with what Kathy was saying, I think on the massing, that's a problem.
I think if you could show us something where you would maybe address shrinking the garage down a little bit, still keeping it in its footprint where you have it because you don't have the depth, and take advantage of the width of your lot, but somehow giving us a reducing in scale on that.
We could reduce the height of the garage, bringing the the garage height is 9.5 feet tall.
And I do think the way you show in the color rendering that the garage is this sort of grayish,
Yeah, it's kind of
neutralish, is a big help.
It's a big help.
But you know, maybe it's the dormers. It'd be nice to see some option on that.
And I'll still say about
How about creating little shed roofs over the garage doors to soften that facade, perhaps? Would that be an option? I mean, that's an option, but would you?
I'm not sure how I would feel about that. If I imagine that it's just you dressing it up, and so maybe it might
you're
draw
adding
more attention.
to it. Mhm.
But I like those things.
Yes.
Like I do love the wing walls. You know, the two major wing walls.
I think the wing walls look like, ta-da! I think they're just very large for wing walls. That's my opinion.
I
Go
agree
ahead.
about the wing walls. I think if you're keeping them, just making them a little
Yeah.
lower, it's less obvious, I think. I think the scale of the whole thing is just a little bit too big too. I mean, obviously the garage is, I think, but the whole, it looks like a 1.5-story house that's just like pumped up a little bit bigger than it really should be. And I understand the 10-foot ceilings on the main floor, and that's why the door would be bigger, but it just, on that street, it just looks a little bit big.
Somehow it looks, if you keep going past, it just, either direction, looks like there's a lot more massing, whether there is or not.
One other point too that staff brought out was more of a monumental walkway up the front. So maybe looking at sizing that
The
scale
size
wise.
of the lead walk?
Yeah, to your front door.
When you look at that rendering,
Let's look at the site plan.
it doesn't look as large. So I don't know if
It's the, yeah, it's the perspective.
it's perspective, yeah.
Yeah, if you're coming from, is that north? Yeah, coming from north on Winslow, and you see the 119, the Anderson residence. It has more presence.
Right.
And it softens
Right.
that. If you're coming from Franklin,
Mhm.
and 111 it's a one story
Right.
next to a story and a half. Even though
Right.
111 is a story and a half, that second floor of 111 is hidden behind the main mass.
Could we see some of the rear views again on the rendering?
And that's the primary bedroom to the left, living room to the middle, and then dining room to the, or breakfast room, I'm sorry, breakfast room to the right there. Those double hung windows there. And then an outdoor kitchen at the pool deck.
Would any of the commissioners like to speak to the size of the proportion of the windows at the front or the recessed dormers?
There are a lot of recessed dormers, especially where the garage is concerned.
Mhm.
You know, there is a house on Fair Street, and I'd walk by it, and when I saw the recessed dormer that has that little flat spot like that, and it's a Tudor style, I went, took a little aback from that, but I mean, there's precedent some for that. And frankly, now that's Fair Street and not this street. But I think that was a common element on a Tudor. But on the garage, it just seems a little, it's competing some with the house. And as far as window goes, I mean, you know, I agree with staff on those comments. I think staff's given some good direction for
I
that.
agree.
Would making the windows 6 feet tall be appropriate rather than 7 feet tall, in keeping the window heads at the same height?
I think you need to draw it up, and it's hard to say.
So Michael, so I'm looking at the front facade.
Yes, sir.
So there's the entrance.
Yes, sir.
You have the single window. Now I'm looking to my right, and then the double to my left. Are those the 7 foot? Or are those, how tall are those windows?
7 feet tall.
So they're 7. And the one, did you say that's the study in the, with the little,
No, that's the closet right there where
Yeah.
Emily has her pointer.
I'm
But
talking
that
about-
right there.
to the right? It'd be to the far right.
To the far right.
That one
that's-
right there.
That's the walk-in closet.
And how tall is that window?
Oh, that's not 7 feet.
It's shorter.
It's 6 feet.
Okay, so it's 1 foot less.
Allowing us to have a little bench underneath the window for dressing.
Yeah, I like things, I don't want to say something that takes things out of proportion. I mean, out of the proportion to everything else
Right.
within its context. So I think that's something that you're just going to have to kind of work out and think about some.
Use your design eye.
Show the other new house and this house in the same frame. If you can. Okay.
Would you like it in the color rendering or in the streetscape?
Streetscape.
Streetscape.
What's good about the color rendering is it almost makes you feel like you're walking on it.
Well, it makes me
Well,
feel
you-
calm because of the perspective. So I'm
Yeah,
trying to take
You'll never see the street
yeah
like this.
this. I know.
You'll have to be in
But I'm
Nashville to look
right.
at it.
I'm just looking at it for massing.
Yeah.
And that is when the garage, to me,
And again, the
Yeah,
garage
that
is,
says
TV
calm
really-
down.
Yeah, it really seems overwhelming. there.
But again, the garage is way in the back.
It's recessed.
It's way recessed.
But is it because we're seeing it first when we're driving off Franklin Road? It's probably
Well, I
because
would-
that drives on the left.
I would
when you're
argue that
coming
you
off.
will never see that.
You'll never see it, you don't
You will
think?
never see it because it's set, go back to your perspective, my perspective.
It's so recessed.
See, look at the front facade in the middle picture, this picture right there.
But
You-
we
you can
need,
never see the
when you
garage.
come back, we need to see it with the historic home on the other side.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, I'm going to do a drive-by.
I drive by, that'll help too. Thank you.
That will help a lot.
But I do see what you mean on, has it recesses back. But I do, because of the way the roof lines work and the space that you have above the top of your header for your garage door and then where it starts up at your roof line, there's a lot of space there. What is the height of your garage? Would you say that was 10 feet?
9.5 feet.
So it's 9.5 feet.
9.5.
So that's a very tall interior garage.
Garage, so it could come down.
Not nowadays, but yeah.
Yeah, not
Historically
nowadays.
speaking, yes.
Right, but from a usability point of view, it
Yes.
could.
Yeah, we could drop it to 8.5 with a, I still like to keep the garage doors at 8 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
That would only leave 6 inches for the motor and the track and all that.
What is the width of your garage door?
8 feet wide.
So they're 8, so it's 8 by 8.
Yes, sir.
So it's basically a square.
A square.
But when
With
you
a 2 foot, 2 feet between the two garages.
when
per
you
zoning
when
requirement.
you show more information, if you know, you'll know whether or not it needs
I
to
will try to
come.
drop that soffit line, that eave, by dropping the ceiling height to 8.5, 9 feet. And see what that does. To reduce that mass between the top of the garage door and the soffit.
I'll just say what my gut is saying to me is we don't want this to look like, hey, we're the two new buddies on the street, in the context of the other houses. And that is where my concern is.
Michael, when you show on the perspective views, the 3D view 3, it's the perspective drawings, not the pretty pictures. Since we're talking about the garage doors, they look in proportion to the house. It's the dormers on that garage that are jumping. When you look at that perspective view, 3D view 3, there you go. All the way top right. We're kind of looking at that angle from the rendering, and then this is the 3D view. The garage dormers have such a presence and a massing and a heaviness on that roof line that those look out of scale to the garage doors and the rest of the
That's true.
proper house.
Yeah, it gives a heaviness to it.
So your point about reducing that head height in the garage may not be necessary if you
Reduce the mass of the dormer
shrink the dormer. Yeah,
to a single window dormer?
I don't know. But you see, that's the massing to me.
Okay.
I wonder if you tried a single dormer more towards the middle that came off the roof line. I know this is not supposed to be a wall. You said this was not a wall dormer. As far as it doesn't line up with the wall, it's pushed back.
It's pushed back, yes, sir.
But the way it's currently the way it's configured, I mean, if it could be more in the center maybe instead of the two of them.
Let's look at the second. Sorry, I'm using you as a mouse. If you zoom in here, please. So this dormer right here is centered between the two garage doors below us.
Yeah, it looks good that way.
I like the symmetry. It's just, we're just concerned about the massing and the scale.
Right.
So that's just a thought. You could put the
I can
dormer in
make
between.
I can make the windows smaller, and I can tighten the wings, squeeze them in closer to the jamb of the windows as well, reducing that mass.
Just to say what I think some of what you're getting at is, it looks like there's a flat roof below that dormer.
It's called a window well.
So that is making that look bigger than what you typically see, because you're typically seeing the roof slope up to the dormer, then the dormer wall starts, and in this case, it's grabbing space to make it bigger with the flat below.
Yeah, if that dormer was coming out farther, eliminating that window well, then the shed roof would have to be flattened, because that shed roof of the dormer would be above the ridge. But that would probably add more presence, or more mass. I think, question mark. So I don't know.
I think to your point, Kelly, too, if, Emily, you go to sheet 16, which is a building section, which we don't always get, so thank you for that, where it shows the garage. Right there. So where I see the garage doors, that dormer over the garage is as wide as the garage door almost. That feels heavy to me for a dormer.
I have a bigger issue with the mass between the garage door and the eave that I like.
It's got
to
a big
reduce.
forehead, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that's.
But has the front of the garage doesn't really call for those dormers to have to exactly match, in my mind. Like you were saying once, maybe make them, I think you said one.
One window dormer.
Uh-huh.
It just reduces the light, the natural light in that space above on the second floor.
I know it's trying to balance what everybody wants today in the context
That's right.
of a historic neighborhood.
That's right.
That's the challenge. Right?
Does this help?
I'm sorry?
Does this help?
Sure. Yes, it does.
Good.
It's a little of a fishing expedition, but that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any other business to come before us?
We do not have any more applications. We did want to comment about the staff announcements. So last Monday, we gave everyone kind of the availability cards. If you have them, let us know. We'd be glad to take them from you. And if you need them, we can give you another one via email or however you'd like it, because we need to go ahead and get our annual training scheduled and get that on the books. So, I think that is it.
Well, the Historic Zoning Commission wishes our staff a Merry Christmas. You all done a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there a motion to adjourn? Holly, did you make that motion?
I do.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll adjourn.